Hi, I'm Laura, and this is Children's Trilogy. And this month of January 2024, I read a total of 9 books, and today I will be discussing them with you. Woo! I have not been reading that much in the past couple of years. However, this month I really dedicated myself to listening to audiobooks while doing tasks that do not require my brain. So, physical tasks. And I do quite a lot of those. And I can't not do these things. Some of them are when I'm doing menial tasks at work that don't require my mind. Some of them is I've been trying to exercise more or doing dishes. And instead of popping on a YouTube video, I've really been trying to listen to audiobooks more. Part of it is because I kind of start to get tired of YouTube videos and I still watch them for fun, but sometimes I get in the mood where none of them are quite scratching the itch of what I want to entertain me. And part of it is just the fact that YouTube videos are short form and they're more conversational, and sometimes I want a large story. And this large story can only really be fulfilled by novels. Now, some TV shows can do that, but not even a movie can scratch this itch. So I've really been listening to audiobooks this month, and I've gotten a lot of books completed, which I'm super excited about, and I want to give you my quick thoughts on each of them. So I don't have a lot of privacy where I live right now, and I don't feel comfortable filming when people can hear me. I do have privacy, like my own room, but there's thin walls. I don't want to be advertising what I'm doing. So I'm not sure how constantly or regularly I'll be able to make content. Honestly, I've not been regular in years. That sounds bad. I've not regularly made reviews or content about books in years. So this isn't anything new. If anything, me posting is the rarity. However, I would like to be more consistent, and even if I don't have time to make individual book reviews, I think it would be good to do quick reading wrap ups, and I hope that I'm able to keep this consistency. Now, I will say I do hope to actually physically read more books this upcoming year because I only physically read one book. But I digress. Let me talk about the books I've read. So, as you notice, some of these are facing the wrong way. That's because I don't have physical copies of them. So, I do actually own physical copies of 3, but they are in Maryland and I am in Florida, so I can't hold them for you. So, these are just random books I think are comparable in size. So, anyway, let's get to the first book, and that is Nightbane by Alex Astor. So I completed that book, and I haven't posted my review for Lightlark yet, but I didn't particularly like Lightlark. So it's a fun read. You can turn your brain off and enjoy it. But I found personally that Lightlark didn't live up to its full potential. The premise of the curses for each kingdom and having to defeat these curses is such a cool premise. Spoilers. There's going to be spoilers. And then the betrayal of her best friend, it could have been so poignant, but the friendship felt very unexplored. It felt very told and not shown. So I didn't particularly care about this character or the betrayal. However, when it came to Nightbane, while the book didn't become a literary masterpiece, I found that it became kind of soap opera-y and fun. I really actually did enjoy Nightbane. It's not high class literature, but I do actually think it answered some questions I had about the first book. 2, the drama was fun. I enjoyed it. The twists, the turns, I really enjoyed. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, the spoiler symbol is going to be up in the right corner. You can skip if you don't want spoilers for Nightbane or mute until it's gone. But overall, like the twist about them being married and the fact that also there was no character assassinations. We got to see more of the civilians of the world, not just the rulers. I love the expansion of the world, and the twists were fun. They were campy. Okay, I like the fact that she's secretly already married to Grim and didn't remember. That's fun. Is it highbrow intellectual? No, I don't care though. It's enjoyable. It's fun. Sometimes you just want fun drama. And I don't know if I would have liked it as much if I read it, because I do find I'm more critical if I'm physically reading sometimes. At least in the sense that I'm like, I'm spending time and taking time out of my day to read this book. Whereas when I listen to it, it is adding enjoyment to a menial task I'm already doing. It does not take time out of my day. I could listen to a different book, but it is not taking time out of my day. And because of that, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I think if you read Light Lark, it is better than Light Lark. It improves. I know, I know this is not the same opinion as everyone. I have two people I know, one who thinks Nightbane is way worse and hates it, one person who agrees more so with me in that they think it's better. Personally, I think it's better. Is it a great book? No. Is it a fun drama? Yeah, it's fun drama. I enjoyed it. Do I have bad taste? Maybe. It would be a guilty pleasure, except I don't feel guilty. It is fun. Anyway, next book. So the next book I've read, I would actually consider a very, very good book. Not just a silly book that I enjoyed. Sorry, I was getting out of the box set. And that is The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. So this one I completely listened to, and the reason, and this is the reason I got super into finishing audiobooks. So Nightbane, most of it I read in December or listened to in December. This, which I got free from the library too, so I didn't pay for it. This book, when it came to this book, me and my fiance and his little sister, we agreed that we decided to do what was my idea, but I got them to agree to doing a Hunger Games movie marathon with me. We scheduled it, and I was like, dang, I want to read all the books before the movie marathon. So that started me listening to the books obsessively and listening to them all within 1 week. So this was the first one, obviously, The Hunger Games. And this is my edition. It's like the shiny gold one. My mom got it for me when I was in high school. And I like how the back has quotes from each book. So this one is May the Odds Be Ever in Your Favor. So I would love to do in-depth discussions about each of these books. But honestly, right now, other books on the top of my mind. So the main thing is that, so this isn't going to be the most in-depth. Also, I've read all the Hunger Games books, if you couldn't tell from me saying I wanted to binge read them all before the movie marathon. Spoiler, that's the next two books. I'm going to give full spoilers for the series. FYI, I'm not putting up a spoiler warning. Honestly, every single other book will be full spoilers. Nightbane's the newest one. Every other one, full spoilers. I'm not going to put up warnings for them all. Let's go. And I'm not saying I will spoil the ending. I'm just saying I might. I don't care. So I have to say, re-listening to the books was interesting. One thing is, and usually I find I'm less critical when listening, but actually I didn't notice this when I read it last year. There's a lot of adverbs in this book. That's not an issue, but I just noticed a lot of adverbs. So rereading this book, I have to say, especially when comparing it to the movie, this book has some details in it that's lacking in the movie that make it so worth the read. Specifically when she's in the Capitol leading up to the game. So one thing is, Katniss definitely feels 16. She doesn't understand romance. She doesn't think about it. And I think that is so important to this story and the horror of what is being done to her. But also, one scene that I really like that's not in the movie that I want to go over is when, so I'm not going to read it to you because I can't find it right now. But a couple of the scenes I really like that's in the book is how in the book, when Katniss shoots the arrow into the apple and gets back to gets back to her quarters or the District 12 quarters, she doesn't like act all stoic and stuff. She runs to her room sobbing Like she's sobbing as she goes, once she gets off the elevator, running past everyone to her room and is ignoring everyone, just crying for hours because she thinks they're gonna kill her, make her an AVOX, kill her family, the awful things. And I like that because it makes her feel younger. Now, in the movie, they don't have that, but personally, I think in the book that really emphasizes her vulnerability and how she's a child, how she is only 16. And another thing I really like is leading up to the games when she's in the Capitol is the evening where she's completely freaking out and smashing plates in her room and she's covered in blood. And when the Avox girl goes and helps her. So one, the amount of distress she's feeling smashing those plates and not even noticing that she's bleeding is so good and so visceral, and it's not in the movie. Um and I think by showing how distraught she is and leading up to it, how on edge she is, it I love that. I love seeing what it's like. You fully see what it's like. It's not just that she's like chill with it. It's not, it's awful. The situation's awful. And then the Avox girl, I feel like a lot of people focus on Madge being taken from the books, and I do like Madge. I also think Katniss's relationship with Madge show how socially incompetent she is when they literally eat lunch together every single day in school, and she doesn't realize that they're friends until Madge comes and sees her off to the games and gives her a gift, the gold Mockingjay pin. It's kind of hilarious how Katniss is like, oh, maybe we were friends. Like that level of social ineptitude, peak Katniss. Katniss has no clue, no social skills. But on top of that, um, I feel like I really like the Avox girl. The inclusion of the Avox girl in this book, it not only shows the full cruelty of the Capitol, but this character, I love the empathy of her. How Katniss has this guilt of not saving her, and that girl only comfort. And then when the whole thing with the plate and the blood happens, the girl comes in and chooses to comfort her. Katniss thinks she hates her, how she wants her to die, and the girl shows her kindness. And I really like that because I don't know, I just really like that. I love that character. I love the humanity and empathy and how the girl shows Katniss kindness despite her circumstances, despite everything she's going through. She acknowledges that Katniss is going through awful things too and chooses to show her kindness and compassion. And I love that. I think it's great. And I love how so many things in this book. This book is so good. I love how Katniss isn't sure if Peeta's being real or not, how that's a lot of the tension. The love triangle is not my favorite, but I actually think it's well done in this series and what it represents. And I love the exploration of propaganda in this series and how everything Katniss goes through. I want to do full analysis of this series, but for now, that's all I'm going to say. And then the next book I read was Catching Fire. Now, this is most people's favorite book and favorite movie, which rereading this book, I really like it, but I actually think some of the scenes are better in the movie. It's my favorite movie, I decided, since rereading and rewatching, but it's not my favorite book. For one thing, like when their names are drawn in the reaping, it's summarized. There's quite a bit of things in this book that are summarized. A lot happens, and it's the same length as the first book, maybe a couple pages off. And honestly, this book is perfect length. This book summarizes too much, and I kind of wish it was longer. So don't get me wrong, I still gave it 5 stars. I love this book. It has my least favorite quote on the back, though. Not that that matters, but it's sparks are igniting, flames are spreading. Yeah, it's okay. I'm such a hater. But I love this book. It's 5 stars to me. Don't get me wrong. The games in it are great. I love meeting all the other tributes. You really get to know more about the characters. So a lot of this book is Katniss doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know what's real and what's not real. Haha, comes in later. But she doesn't know if Peeta's genuine. She doesn't quite trust everyone. Whereas in this book, we know Peeta's genuine. In this book, the relationship between them, they're trying to protect each other and she knows it. In this one, she's trying to protect him when she knows he's trying to protect her. And we really get to learn more about the characters in this book because Katniss gets to know them. She actually trusts them in this book. And also, while this book is entirety of this games, this book has quite a bit before she even knows she's going into the games again. And I really like that, but I will say the part from when they announce that the games are going to be having previous tributes in them, and Katniss realized she's going to be in them, and either Peeta or Haymitch are going to be in the games, through their training all the way to the games is summarized. And I've been re-listening to The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I read the physical book last November before the movie. I realized that this series has a lot more summarization than the new book. And I don't know if it's her writing style's changed or she felt the need to summarize less than the new books, or if it's because the prequel is like over 600 pages. These books are, this one is like 439. They're all about the same length. I feel this book could have been 600 pages. There is quite a bit summarized. The whole training part, even the part where her name's drawn, feels summarized. And that chunk of the book I do wish was more fleshed out, especially because she trains with Gale, and that's when she decides she's Gale's and Gale's is her. She chooses Gale in this book and ends up letting him go once she leaves for the games because she believes she'll never see him again. I feel like that would have been a great opportunity to get to know Gale, and we don't really. It's summarized that he helps her something and that he comments that it'd be easier if Peeta was easier to hate because Gale's a jealous butthole. But I wish there was less summarization. I love the book. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But there's a bit more summarization than I would like. But then when it comes to the games, it's all in depth. It's not summarized. And I love how much happens in the games. One thing that's not in the movie that I think is so hilarious is when they have all these gross sores, and then they put on this green medicine that makes them look like zombies. Well, Katniss and Finnick do, and Peeta's sleeping. And so they go and wake up Peeta, like quietly, with their faces just in his face and traumatize him. It's hilarious. So I love that. And yeah, it's a good book. And I think it's great. And then finally, my favorite book in the trilogy, most people's least favorite, Mockingjay. So I have a tendency to have unpopular opinions about popular things. So I agree that I like the popular things, but I have unpopular opinions about the popular things, which is why this is my favorite book in the series. And the quote in the back is, "If we burn, you burn with us." Favorite quote on the back of the books too, which I don't think most people would disagree with. However, this book, I do feel like there's a little bit things summarized I would love to see in depth. But overall, I love this book. This book is great. It is better than the movies. I love it. It's so good. So I love the depiction of PTSD in this book. It's so immersive and in depth. And I really empathize with Katniss. And I genuinely think it's a great depiction of PTSD. And I love how in these two books, the use of propaganda is within the context of the games, and it's super important. And then this book, it takes away the fun. There's no more fun adventure. It's war. This was never fun in my opinion. I never really found the Hunger Games fun. It's not a fun story, but some people do. And then it's just straight up war. It's straight up PTSD, traumatization, and the propaganda isn't just manipulating the games, being like, oh, we're pretending to be in love, or oh, are we actually in love? No, it's just very straight up war and straight up war propaganda. And it's the full reality of the premise of the original books, of the first two books, slapping you in the face. And I love it. And then the fact that, and then what happens to Peeta with the brainwashing, and the fact that Katniss is so flawed. She doesn't immediately go, I will save Peeta. She's kind of selfish about it, but it feels real. Katniss is such a flawed, traumatized girl, and I feel like a lot of people talk about YA dystopian, and they're like, oh yes, the teen girl who topples the government. That's not the case in the Hunger Games. Katniss is a prop. She's a tool being used by the adults in her life. And it there's no romanticization. And also in this series, the over toppling of the government isn't just, okay, we made an evil government, time to topple it. There's more themes explored at this. The propaganda, again, full brunt of it, but also one of the reasons Susan Collins wanted to write this series was to explore just war theory. And this is fully explored in this book. It kind of comes up, I feel like, a bit in this with self-defense, but it's more of an individual level. I don't really feel like these books explore just war theory quite as well as this one does. Gale represents vengeance and rage and using your enemy's tactics no matter how horrible they are, because if they're using them, you're going to use them too, versus Peeta, who is kind and good, and also like Katniss pushes back to Gale. And it explores these themes in a way that isn't telling isn't telling teenagers, this is the correct conclusion, this is the wrong one. It doesn't talk down to teenagers. It shows you the reality of it in a way that it flows and it doesn't hold punches, but it also is age appropriate, if not on the darker end of age appropriate. But yeah. And then I also love how her and Joanna become friends in the book and they train together. I love, like, I don't even like Gale. Gale's freaking stupid. He's jealous not only of Peeta, but of Finnick, and just constantly, he's the worst. But there's a scene where they're kissing in District 2, and the way it's written in this, where it's like summarized, where it's like Katniss doesn't even realize they're kissing until they are, and it like shows how lost she is. And then at the end, after after her sister's dies, and how she's not talking and just hiding from people, and then after she assassinates Coin and she's put in the room and is in prison, at first is going to starve herself, but then she just starts singing on days on end. And then when she's released and goes home, she again just sits in the chair and stares at a fireplace. And is it not Mads? Greasy Sal, it comes and like takes care of her home and gives her food, and Katniss is just sitting in this chair getting her hair more and more matted, not bathing, not anything. The multiple months in phases of like just trauma and not functioning, it doesn't hold back. And the part where she starts singing is downright right, like so moving. It's such a good book. And the ending, yes, there's only so much time that can be left after the Capitol's defeated, and after her sister dies, and after she assassinates Coin, but it's so good, and the movie can't depict it as good as this, and I love it. It's great. This is my favorite book in the trilogy. I'm re-listening to the prequel. I like the prequel. This one I think is still my favorite though. So good. 5 stars. Anyway, the next book I read was Uglies by Scott Westerfield, because I was like, you know what? I'm on a YA dystopian kick. Let's listen to the Uglies series while I am doing other tasks. And I have to admit, the first book especially didn't age as well as I thought it did. So let me rephrase that. It's not about aging well. It's just not as good as I thought it was. So I never thought it was like the greatest dystopian ever, but I was thinking about this. It really brought this thought up to me, and that is the concept of the promise of the premise. So the promise of the premise is literally what the book promises you based on the premise. So I don't like usually comparing books, but I'm going to compare it. The Hunger Games promises you kids being forced to fight to the death. That is the promise of the premise, and the book delivers on the promise of the premise. So the Uglies series, Uglies book 1 is about a girl who is ugly until she turns 16, where she gets surgery to make beautiful. That's what her dystopian government does. She lives in a city where at 16, everyone is considered ugly until 16. They're giving plastic surgery to make beautiful. They separate the uglies from the pretties. The uglies live in dorms, and they pull pranks, and they go hoverboarding, which is just flying skateboards all the time, that do it based on magnets in the ground. And then across the river is New Pretty Town, where they get everything they want and they just party all the time and they're beautiful. And then the parents are like in Middle Pretty Town, where they keep their littlies until they get old enough where they're sent to the Uglies. So there's not really much of a family unit. And then there's Crumblyville for the old people. But the main character is Ugly, and it starts with her going to New Pretty Town to see her friend. And he's like, okay, but don't come back till you're pretty. And then she goes back and she meets a girl named Shay. Shay teaches her to hoverboard, and Tally talks about how she wants to be made pretty and how she doesn't like her face. And then Shay's like, I don't want to be made pretty, I like my face. And then Shay runs away into the wilderness to meet a guy named David, leaving Tally obscure directions. And then the specials, the evil, like, super soldiers of the city, forces Tally to go in the wilderness to find Shay and David in the smoke to get them back. And then she'll be made pretty because, I forgot to say, when Shay leaves, they have the same birthday. A couple days later, it's Tally's birthday, and they refuse to give her surgery unless she helps find Shay. So Tally goes off on her hoverboard, looks at the beautiful environment and nature, and thinks about how the Rusties, which is just people nowadays, almost destroyed the world because they didn't take care of the environment. And their civilization collapsed because a virus infected oil, which made it combust when it contacted air. And so that's why the Rusties almost destroyed the world by not caring about the environment, which really, their civilization collapsed because they depended too much on one fuel source. But that's neither here nor there right now. And then Tally goes to the smoke, and David and Shay are boyfriend-girlfriend. David immediately leaves Shay for Tally, and it doesn't seem like he even has a conversation with her about it. Tally doesn't quite realize that we're dating until Shay says something, because David gave Tally gloves and he never gave Shay gloves, and they have blisters on their hands, and he never ever gave Shay gloves. And Shay's like, yeah, he likes you more than me. And David likes Tally for no reason, talks about how special she is because she was able to get to the smoke by herself, which no one's ever done before. And then they kiss. Oh no, then David's like, meet my parents. The parents are like, actually, the surgery, when they make you pretty, puts lesions in your brain, which makes you dumb and compliant, so they can control you. And then Tally's like, I'm not going back. She kisses David, throws a heart locket in a fire, and then she kisses him. And oops, the heart locket, which was a tracking device, when it's destroyed, sends off a signal. The evil specialist come, gets everyone, and then Tally escapes, and David was off in a cave, so he didn't need to escape. Also, Shay realized that Tally betrayed them. When that happens, it's like, you stole my boyfriend and you caused them to come. Tally escapes, and she escapes on the hoverboard, and she's barefoot, which is why she wasn't able to run away at first. And she finds David, they come back, and everyone's left their shoes everywhere for her, which was my favorite part of the book. That scene was great. How everyone just kicked off their shoes for her. I thought that was really touching and sweet, and I really liked that. But anyway, then her and David go back to the new city to save everyone, and Shay's already been made pretty, and they all escape together, including Shay. But David's father was died in surgery. They tried to force on him to remove his memories. It was experimental surgery, never done before. And then David's mom doesn't like Tally, and Tally tells him all the truth, but David's mom already knew that. And David runs off, and Shay doesn't want to use experimental medicine to try to cure her brain, and David's mom refuses to experiment on people without their consent, because that's how her husband died. So Tally goes back to the evil. So Tally's like, well, I consent. I'll go get made pretty so you can give me medicine. So the book ends with Tally turning herself into the evil city government, being like, make me pretty. That's the book. I summarized it. And so, main issues with the book. So I will say, Tally is a product of her environment, which is well done. However, my main issues are, one, the promise of the premise. The premise is everyone's beautiful and you're ugly until you turn that age. There was an emotional distance between me and the character where I never really felt like emotionally connected to her feeling of being ugly. She didn't really seem to care. And to me, rereading it, I really feel a book for teenagers about a girl who's considered ugly until she gets plastic surgery should make me feel, and I should empathize with her and her feelings of looking inadequate. I feel a lot of teen girls feel that way, and some teen boys, a lot of teens in general feel like they aren't attractive, and adults, and they're insecure about that. That's not how Tally felt. It more so felt like Tally didn't like how she looked, but no one cares because everyone's considered ugly until they get pretty surgery. And I feel beauty standards were really not that relevant. Yes, there were characters who were like, hey, I disagree with these beauty standards. I'm already pretty. But it never felt like Tally was upset at being told she was ugly. It was kind of more like, yeah, that's just how it is. Everyone's ugly. Then they get made pretty. And then when she's not made pretty, it's not that she's distraught about, she's not like looking in her face being like, I'm so ugly and I will be ugly forever. I feel like it's more so, I mean, she is a little bit, but it doesn't feel emotional. It's not an emotional insecurity about how she looks. It's more so she didn't get the thing that everyone's supposed to get. And she's in trouble, which is embarrassing. And I don't know. I feel like for a premise that's supposed to be about beauty standards, I actually don't think this series explores beauty standards particularly well. I feel like I should emotionally empathize with the character feeling that she's not beautiful enough, and I don't. Tally doesn't feel insecure about how she looks. She's very matter of fact. Her nickname's Squint because her eyes are considered squinty. She says her nose is flat like a squash. Her lips are too thin. Her hair's too frizzy, but she doesn't care. It's just like, yeah, that's just how it is. And I don't know. I feel like this book actually was much more interested in talking about the environment. So the environment's important. My job involves helping the environment. Love the environment. Want to help it. That's not what the premise of this book promised. And the author felt way more interested in talking about how the people who are all dead hurt the environment. And every single character in this book agrees the environment is important. Every single character, except maybe the love interest at one point wants to cut down trees to put a track, and then everyone tells him no, and he's like, okay, we won't. Cool, that's fine. I'll do what everyone wants to do. No big deal. But literally, every single character cares about the environment. But there's a large chunk of the book where Tally's just looking around being like, the humans destroyed everything. The environment's so beautiful. I love the environment. The environment's important. And it's like, you know what stories explore the environment in really well, like caring about the environment well? Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, or another example, Princess Mononoke. Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke. Great, great movie. This book was supposed to be about beauty standards, and it's not. And the exploration of the environment, you generally, if you're exploring a theme, you want there to be a character who disagrees so there can be some pushback. Though Lorax has a Onceler who destroys the environment. Princess Mononoke has Lady Eboshi, who's actually more like morally gray and complex, but she's destroying the environment to help people. She's someone who disagrees with the premise. Every single character in Uglies agrees that you need to care about the environment, and the book just preaches about how important the environment is. And like, I feel like the author should have just wrote a book about protecting the environment. Like, I've read Flush. It's a fun book. Good book. There's actually an antagonist who's hurting the environment. This book does not have that. There's no one hurting the environment. Everyone agrees. This book is supposed to be about beauty standards and is not interested in talking about them. And part of me is like, I don't want to tell the author what he thinks or what he went through, but it doesn't read to me like someone who was super insecure about how they look. Maybe he was growing up, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like someone detached who's like, you know, a lot of teen girls are insecure about beauty standards. I should talk about that, but they don't have an emotional investment and don't know what it's like. Maybe he does. Maybe he was insecure about how he looked growing up. But if he was, I don't think he effectively portrayed what he went through. It feels detached, and if he was, he should have put more of his soul into that because it feels more clinical. It feels more like, yes, beauty standards are stupid. People all are beautiful. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so that's my issue. And then also the emotional distance. So I did say I like the scene where Tally escapes and everyone leaves shoots for her. But overall, also the other thing is this book isn't really exploring the world as much. Like, yes, she's there, but I wish there was a bit more of issues with her being ugly and how she's treated by the Pretties. Since they're separate, she literally only sees the Pretties once, and then it's just her hoverboarding the whole book. She just hoverboards. And if I'm reading about dystopian, I would like to experience the dystopian, but really it's more so her hoverboarding, playing some pranks, and then leaving and hoverboarding in the wilderness. And then the emotional distance. I think the best way to explain this is with the love interest, because he is abysmal. He is not a character. He is a thing. He is just a plot point who's not even important. So the love interest, I don't feel like he's a real person. He just talks about how like great and special she is, and that's why he likes her. And don't get me wrong, Tally is not Mary Sue. She's a flawed character. She makes mistakes, and there are consequences for her actions. The author does a great job of making there be consequences for every decision she makes. Good or bad, there were consequences for her actions. That is well done. She is not a Mary Sue, but David acts like she's God's gift to the world, which, granted, your love interest, generally, if someone loves you, they think you're better. They think you're not the same as everyone else. That's why they chose you. However, it's not necessarily like they get to know each other that well. And there's a scene when they're going back to save everyone, and they're traveling for weeks together. And there's a scene where it says how it's been raining. They have to like hide in a tent for 3 days because it's raining so hard. How the first day they talk forever about who they are in their childhoods, and she feels like she knows him better than anyone she's met before. That's the scene. It's just summarized like that. You do not learn a single thing he said. Not a single thing he said about himself is said to you. I know nothing about him except he grew up in the wilderness. His parents are doctors, and he wears a cool leather jacket. He is not a person. He's not a character. And then it says the second day they fought, and she doesn't remember what it's about. We don't know why they fought, and we will never know. And we're supposed to believe that they love each other. He's like, first of all, he has a girlfriend, immediately leaves his girlfriend for her, and then the next 2 books, he's still in love with her, despite the fact that they almost never interact. So this boy who got over a girl 2 seconds, the moment he saw another girl, over her, we're supposed to believe he's still in love with Tally without talking to her, with her rejecting him over the course of multiple months. I don't believe that. Second of all, he's not a person. He is not a character. And that leads me to the second book, Pretties. Pretties is the best book in the series, in my opinion. So it adds pretty lingo with like their own slang term. And this book, I feel, explores the world the best. We are in New Pretty Town for most of the book. And honestly, I feel like the themes of the story has less to do with beauty standards and more to do with control and freedom. So it's about Tally, and she's in New Pretty Town, and she meets this guy Zane, and the Smokies put a pill, and she and Zane both take a pill because she's too scared to take it herself, and this pill's supposed to cure them. It's about her and Zane, what happens to them. There's 2 pills, they each take one, and they end up they're in a club or a clique called the Crims, and they're trying to help everyone get bubbly, which is breaking out of the lesions, to think for themselves and think more clearly. And so they're doing pranks and exciting things to break everyone out, because when you're scared or excited, it helps you. And Tally and Zane are working together, and Zane is the other character in the love triangle. Now, actually, both these books, the love triangles are fine, in my opinion. Tally doesn't remember David. She falls for Zane, and they work together to break the mind lesions, and it's well done. The romance, they can't really talk about everything they want to because they're constantly being spied on, because dystopian government, that kind of goes hand in hand. But it's well done. They communicate through how they look at each other and what they're doing, and you feel like they're growing together. Zane feels like a fleshed out person, and there's themes of self-harm, which whether or not they're done well, that's up to you. But Zane is pretty much anorexic. He's constantly eating calorie purgers. He doesn't particularly eat. He just drinks coffee and has calorie purgers, which makes him super skinny. And part of it is to get this control, because the more hungry he is, the more alert he is. It's to break out the mind lesions, which I feel fits how it's interesting, because in the first book, they're like, oh, there's no more anorexia or self-harm because everyone's beautiful now. But then he proceeds to starve himself because these forms of self-harm are not just about being beautiful. People don't just do it because, oh, I need to be skinnier. Sometimes it's about control. And I feel like it's very fitting that these teen characters are struggling for control in their own lives, how little control they have and how desperate they are that they're starving. And but Shay starts cutting herself, which is messed up, but it's another way in which she rebels to try to get control over her mind. Which is a bit iffy because their methods of self-harm actually work in helping them get control, which is a mixed message for kids. However, it does make sense for the characters in the world. So take with that what you will. And then everyone escapes except Shay does not escape because she's having a mental breakdown. But Tally and Zane and some of the other crims escape. And Tally ends up by herself in this, like, she calls it a reserve. It's essentially a bunch of people. When America fell, they just took some random people. Like, the main guy is like Andrew Simpson Smith. He's like the holy man who speaks the same language as Tally. And they put them in, I think, 2 different, like, groups. And they, like, the evil scientists put them in these, like, primitive tribes and essentially just started this endless war of revenge between them. Like the Hatfields and McCoys, but it's primitive. And they're just killing each other. And honestly, Andrew Simpson Smith, I like him. I don't think this is fully explored, but essentially the evil government did this because they need people who are who's constantly surrounded by violence. So they know what parts of the brains are being activated, so they knew where to put the lesions. So that's where the experiment began, to study this, so they knew how to do the surgery, which actually makes sense, way more sense than the Maze Runner, but I digress. But anyway, so she gets to know him and learn about his world. And I like how he doesn't just, like, agree with her on everything. And, like, he doesn't believe in gravity, but he does listen to her and believe her when she says they aren't gods. And she can't escape right away because there's this, like, neuro thing that messes with your mind. There are these, like, little dolls. And so he believes that, like, they're tiny plot of land. It's not even, like, 7 days. It's not even a week's walk to what's the end of where his world is. And sees, like, creepy little doll things that cause, like, a neuro thing that just makes you collapse. And so she ends up stealing a vehicle, getting to the new smoke, and finding everyone. And then it turns out, whoops, Zane took the cure, which ate his lesions, but then started eating the rest of his brain. And Tally just took the thing that was supposed to dissolve the nanos that were eating his brain. So she was never cured. She cured herself through sheer force of will. And so then the evil government comes, and Zane can't leave because they put when he went to the hospital before, which I didn't mention, but whatever. They put, like, a tracker on his tooth and also, like, disabled the nanos, and they put a tracker on his tooth that caused headaches, so he wouldn't realize it disabled it, and also because it allowed them to find where the smoke was. And then Tally and Zane are captured, and the evil lady's like, I'm gonna make you special now. And Tally's like, no. Or actually, Shay's good, like, we're gonna make you special now. And Tally's like, no, because Shay's, like, a special super soldier now, but she's, like, a crazy one covered in scars and tattoos and fangs and stuff. And black eyes. But, and then the third book is Specials. So Specials, it's not as good as Pretties, better than Uglies. So Specials, Tally's a super soldier, and now her brainwashing, she has all her memories, but she thinks she's superior to everyone and hates weakness and everyone else. And so she sees her, also I forgot to say, when Tally gets to the new smoke, David's like, what about me? And Tally's like, no, I love Zane. I choose Zane. And then when the evil people are coming, David's like, you have to come with us. And Tally's like, no, I'm not coming with you. I'm staying with Zane. And David's like, no. And she's like, you're ugly. And then he leaves because Tally just wants him to leave. Not because she actually thinks he's ugly. Well, she does think he's ugly because of the brainwashing. But I digress. The point is, she chooses Zane immediately because she's like, this is my man. I don't remember everything that happened in the past, but it's in the past. I chose Zane. I still choose Zane. So in the third book, she, like, sees David for a minute, and she wants to, like, destroy him, and Shay's like, her and Shay hate him, and Shay keeps being like, he's your boyfriend, even though he is both of their boyfriends, but Shay's like, oh, it's your boyfriend, and she's annoying. And Shay has this mentality with Tally where she wants Tally to be subservient to her. I feel like she has this sense of revenge where she hated Tally before, I forgot to say, but when her mind was getting clearer in Pretties, when she first remembered, she was really resentful of Tally because she never got to work through everything. Tally's betrayal when it came to David, which was stupid, but also the actual betrayal with her being captured and made pretty. So she still has this pent up anger and never got to dealt with it or confront it. And then specials, she's acting like they're friends, but really she wants Tally to be subservient to her. And so Tally goes and sees Zane, but he's super weak and she can barely look at him because of the brain thing they did to her. She just hates weakness and can't deal with it. It's kind of messed up, like how it's really sad and cruel how what they did to her prevents her from like being with her loved one, because his sickness causes her so much disgust she can't even like show compassion, and it's awful. It's like terrible. But anyway, so then Shay and Tally break into this super secret building and completely destroy it to get this thing to break off a necklace thing off Zane so he can escape, because it's like a super powerful tracker thing and they can't just break it normally. So they destroy the entire building and he escapes, and then Tally's just following him. And then she sees Andrew Simpson Smith, gets directions to the new smoke from him, and gives it to Shay. And Tally's like, well, I'm still following Zane to make sure he's okay. And Shay's like, well, F you, you're the worst. We're not friends anymore, because she wants Tally to come with her with the new thing. And Tally's like, well, I should stay here because what if you can't get in without someone else? And Shay's like, I know you just thought of that after you already decided to stay with Zane. You suck. We're not friends. You're a POS. Screw you, loser. And then they fight and leave. And to me, it reads as Shay really felt like she was only Tally's friend if Tally was doing what she wanted her to do. And so Tally follows Zane on the way there. At some point, they kiss, and then Tally's disgusted because he shakes because of his sickness and her brain thing they did to her. And she like almost throws up because of that, and she runs away. And then she follows him, and the new smoke is actually just a freaking city that is taking people in. It's Diego, probably San Diego. And so then the Tally gets captured, and the Diego government's like, your body is a illegal weapon, so we have to do surgery to make you normal. And Tally's like, no, I don't want to be made normal. I want to be a cool super soldier. And she escapes with Shay, and Shay's like, hey, bad guys are coming because we destroyed the building, and they blame Diego and they want to start war. So then they attack the building, the town hall, and destroy it. And then it turns out, oh no, Zane died because he had surgery. He had brain surgery to try to be so they gave Zane brain surgery when he was there. Tally didn't know this, to try to cure his brain damage. And he was like, I want the experimental thing to be made as good as possible. It's implied that it might be because, or probably is because Tally was like disgusted by him. And he's like, I need her to love me again. So she feels this guilt because he died, because the war happened because of her, and the surgery happened because of her. And everyone had to evacuate the hospital, but he couldn't because he could not be unhooked. And his body rejected the new brain tissue, and no one was there to help him. So he died. And Tally wants to say goodbye to him. Not goodbye. She wants to see him before he's unplugged. And Shay's like, no, we gotta go. She doesn't trust her because she hasn't been cured. But Tally was not cured this entire book, and she's not a complete psychopath. I get she has anger issues because of what they did to her. They have anger issues because of their brain thing and think they're superior to everyone. But she can function. She can relatively function, and they're acting like Tally's gonna go berserk. I feel like it's because, Shay got cured. She's now like, oh, Tally, if you see him, you'll go berserk. I'm like, girl, calm down. Let her say goodbye to him. And Tally's like, let me, also Shay and Tally a little before this, Tally's like, do you really think I'm the most selfish, awful person? And Shay's like, no, it's just you think you're the center of the world, but that's different. But we're still friends. Also, Shay and Tally made up once Shay was cured. And Tally, then to see Zane, is like, let me be the center of the world one more time. And I'm kind of like, girl, I feel like asking to see your boyfriend before he's unplugged from the machine is very reasonable. Them trying to refuse to let you do that they're the unreasonable ones. You are not acting like the center of the world to want to see your boyfriend before he's unplugged from his life support and dies. Everyone else is unreasonable. But anyway, then Tally and Shay are going to go back to the original city that they're from, which is never given a name, to be like, hey, we destroyed the building. It wasn't Diego. Stop the war. And then Tally's like, well, Shay's cured, so no one's going to believe her, so I'm going to leave by herself. So Tally takes a hoverboard, goes all the way back there, and then when she gets to the old decrepit city right outside the rusty ruins, right outside her city, David's waiting for her because he took a hover car part of the way. Someone dropped him off, and she's like, oh, my dramatic exit was kind of stupid because I could have got a ride most of the way. But anyway, they talk, and he's like, I'll wait for you. I'm like, dude, you have literally not talked this entire book except like threatening like 2 times in 2 scenes. And then the book before that, you literally didn't talk except like 2 chapters, and then she chose another guy over you. Why are you still waiting for her? You left Shay like that. I don't believe you're in love. I've never seen you really truly interact. You just talked about how great she was before you even knew she was lying to you. And then apparently you knew each other so much because of that one tent scene. I never saw that. He's still waiting for her. They literally don't talk for 2 books. And he's like, I'm waiting for you. I'm like, dude, I don't care. Anyway, he gives her the cure, but he's like, I'm not going to make... Oh, and this cure is a shot instead of a pill. And he's like, I'm not going to force it to you, but here you go if you want. And then Tally goes into the special headquarters, and the evil special lady who's Dr... I don't remember her name, but the evil special doctor lady... What is her name? Dr. Cable. Dr. Cable, who's the big bad, which I didn't mention before, but who cares? Also, like, Dr. Cable's a big bag and special, and Tally literally works for her in the 3rd book, and we don't even see her that much, which is a missed opportunity, because usually a lot of times with villains, like the Hunger Games, Katniss doesn't get to see Snow much. It wouldn't make sense. It would have made sense for Tally to see Dr. Cable more, and she doesn't, which is a missed opportunity to really make her a fleshed out villain who's really cool. Bye, Dara. So Dr. Cable's like, oh, I know it was you and Shay. I got your DNA, but I am not gonna let anyone know because I actually just want to destroy Diego and have war because Diego is super bunch of hippies. Because also Diego stopped doing the brain control thing since the new smoke got there. They distributed a bunch of pills, and that's why the new smoke's there, because they cured a bunch of people without the government knowing, and now it's a democracy. And also now you can have whatever surgery you want, and there's people who look like cats and people with pinkies, snakes for pinkies, which is stupid. Like, I get you shouldn't be forced to look a certain way, but you don't, like, doctors can refuse to make your appendages into frickin' snakes. Like, that seems like a break of the Hippocratic Oath. Like, I guess it's not harmful, but your pinky should not be a snake. You're stupid. If you want your pinky to be a snake, no, you're wrong. You're incorrect. By the rest. Anyway, so Dr. Cable wants to destroy them because they have stupid pinkies. That's not why, but that's why I think they should be destroyed. And Tally cures Dr. Cable and is then trapped in a prison cell. And slowly over time, Dr. Cable, due to her being cured, slowly loses grip of power. And then the TV turns on in Tally's prison cell. And it's like, oh, Dr. Cable's relinquished power. And now they're going to cure all the specials because they're illegal. And only her city has specials. And her city, to try and make amends for attacking an innocent city and killing 11 people, are like, we will cure all our specials to be normal. And so Tally's like the last one to be cured, and she's being forced, and she doesn't want to be. And then Dr. Cable helps her escape, and and she's like, why'd you help me escape? And Dr. Cable's like, because you're my prodigy, or my super special thing that I made, and you're an endangered species. And then Tally runs off into the runs off, and then meets up with David, who is still waiting for her. I don't know why, and I don't care. And then Tally like looks at her like Skintena communicator thing, which is just like a communicator thing in her head. I think it's the one in her head, and she gets a bunch of emails from like her friends, Shay, and then her friend that she visited in the first book, who was also a career in Paris. And then David's mom also sends a message being like, is my son there? I'm worried about him. Tally's parents do not message her though. They're in the first book and then are forgotten. I get that they're not like super close because of the format of the world with separating kids once they become teens, but they don't give a shit about her apparently. But anyway, so, and then Tally just sends them all a threat saying, if you hurt the environment, I will come and I'll beat your ass, and things will get ugly if you hurt the environment. And then the book ends. All of these people are like, we're so worried about you. Is my son okay? And Tally's like, me and David are running off into the wilderness, and if anyone hurts the environment, we will beat you up. Yeah. Also, I just realized I held 3 books. There should have been a 4th book, because I also read Extras, which is the next book in this series, which is the companion novel from a different character's point of view. And so yeah, but I'll go back to specials. So the ending's stupid. So yes, there are moments where Tally thinks about how the environment's important and how you need to protect it in the second and third book, Pretties and Specials, but it's done in a way that I feel is better. It's in the story talking about the environment being important, but it doesn't overtake the story. The story is about freedom from mind control. It's not really about beauty standards. It's about freedom of mind control, freedom of thought, freedom to control yourself. And I think that is the main focus of the second and third book. But then the ending makes it seem like it's about the environment. And so part of it's weird is because the evil government's brain controlled everyone, and their excuse is because people will hurt the environment or start war if they're not mind controlled. And then at the end, Tally's like, maybe I shouldn't cure everyone because they might hurt the environment. And to me, that reads as Tally now believes what the villains believe. Tally now believes maybe I shouldn't have cured everyone because they might hurt the environment. And it is said that she's cured at the end because after she escapes, the final time she cries, which she couldn't do as a special, so she broke her mind control. But I don't believe she fully broke out of it. And also, it's just weird. It would be like, I know I don't like comparing books, but The Hunger Games. The whole reason for Snow and what he does is because of control. That's what he says in the prequel. It's all about control. So it would be like if at the end of the Hunger Games, Katniss overthrows the government and there's no more Hunger Games, and then Katniss is like, but maybe we should have had the Hunger Games. Maybe it was a mistake to stop the Hunger Games where kids are forced to fight to the death because now the government won't be able to control everyone, which could cause chaos and war. That's what happens. Tally is like, maybe we should force everyone to have brain lesions that makes them docile and unable to fully think because now they might hurt the environment. I'm like, ma'am, what? And then she threatens all her friends and David's mom being like, if you hurt the environment, it'll get ugly. When none of them, not a single one of those characters have ever wanted to hurt the environment. They all cared. We have no reason to believe they do not care about the environment. So it's just stupid. She's just threatening people. And it's like what I said, how the author wanted to talk about the environment, but didn't write a single character who wanted to hurt the environment. And then that's the conclusion Tally comes to. It's not that people should have free will. It's that because people have free will, they might hit the environment, so I should hurt them and threaten people who literally no point threatening them. It's just dumb. And so then the next book is Extras. Extras is from a different character's point of view in Japan, and it's about her city where instead of money, now that everyone's cured, there's limited stuff because people who can use their full brain want more things. So instead of like having jobs or money, they decide to do reputation. So the more famous you are, the more stuff you get, or merits. Whereas if you're a good citizen, you get more merits, which allows you to spend on things, which is stupid because like it's fine. That one makes more sense, except for the fact she accidentally steps on the flower, which makes her lose merits, which is ridiculous. Like it's essentially like you get money from working, but if you step on a flower in a park, you lose money. Like that's way like she's like, oh, having to work for money is ridiculous, but then you lose money if you step on the flower. What the heck? Now all your essentials are there, but any extra stuff you have to either be famous, which is stupid, or do good deeds and not step on flowers by accident. So that book, I didn't like it when I first read it years ago. And there's these weird things that you think are aliens, but they're just people who had so much surgery. They look horrifying. And they want to go to space because, okay, so a tangent. So I actually think the premise, well, it doesn't make sense logically. I think the idea of like fame and like how she's creating stuff to be more famous actually aged better because of YouTube and the internet and social media. However, I have mixed feelings. So one, she lies to people constantly, and I actually feel at the end she never fully has to face her consequences. Tally always faced her consequences. She destroys a building, accidentally destroys a war, her boyfriend dies. Super heavy consequences. This girl lies to everyone, and then she lies to her boyfriend, Hero, or lies to a guy, and then he becomes her boyfriend, saying yes, she would have kept the girl's secret if she didn't think it would save the world, which isn't entirely true. And it never comes up. She never has to admit the fact that, oh, she revealed these girls' secret and lied to them and manipulated them. And she didn't just reveal it because she thought it was needed to save the world. She would have done it anyway to get famous. Never comes up. Never fully faces the consequences, never deals with her repercussions for her lying. So that's one thing. Another thing is they believe that Tally saved the world, and Tally's like the most famous person in the world. And they're like, she overthrew the mind thing, and the mind reign was when everyone's lesions were removed and their brains were cured. I disagree. Tally did not overthrow the evil government. Okay, if anything, David's mom did. David's mom made the cure. She cured everyone. And yes, Tally was the one who allowed David's mom to figure out, oh, wait, Tally was able to overcome the mind control. I can make a different pill that's less dangerous. She literally already made the pill without Tally. Tally just helped her make a less dangerous one that's quicker. And then Tally goes and gives Dr. Cable the shot that cures her. And then slowly the government's overcome. But also while that's happening, the specials that have already been cured are making news stories about her, talking about how she abused them and had them harm themselves so that they would be like super soldiers for her. Like they were self-harming the whole time. Tally stops because her boyfriend says she doesn't like it, which I don't think is the best exploration of it. But the point is, so many people are doing things. David's mom made the cures. David was looting the smoke. Tally, I do not believe it would make sense for the general public to believe Tally was the one who cured everyone. Tally inspired the medicine. She cured Cable. And when she was captured by Diego, they got like a full schematics of her body. And they could show this is what was done to her, like to make her a super soldier. So she's like famous. In the third book, her level of fame makes sense at that point. She is the one known for her, like what was done to her, and she's captured by the bad guys. But she's not like the hero of the world. The next book in the series acts like she's the one who overthrew the government, is the hero of the world. And it kind of goes into what I said about like people act like YA books where the teen girl overthrows the government. Tally didn't overthrow the government. Most of the curing was done unrelated to her, with the new smoke doing their own thing. The trilogy was more so exploring Tally's individual journey of each book breaking out of her conditioning and brainwashing, whether it was just how she was raised or what was done to her mind. It's an individual journey. And yes, she does help overthrow the government. I do not believe it makes any sense for her to be credited as the hero and become the most famous of them all. It would make much more sense for Maddie to be the most famous because she actually made the cure. And Tally was like a person who inspired Maddie to make the cure. I disagree with that premise. And then thirdly, the whole thing about the book is, so Aya is the main character in this book. Aya is like following these Sly girls to make a story about them, and then they find this like underground base that shoots like metal missiles into space, or like missile shaped things into space, that they're just metal though. And she's like, oh, it's to destroy cities. And then Tally comes in. I'm like, I'm here because it's a special circumstance and we're going to defeat them so they don't destroy the world. And they track them. And then the weird alien looking people try to capture Aya. Well, before Tally comes. And then Tally like has her knocked out and they all get captured together as part of Tally's plan. And then they find out where the weird alien things live. And they travel to them and they like split up at some point. And then Aya realizes, oh, they're not actually trying to destroy the world. And she gets Tally and is like, hey, they're not trying to destroy the world. And then they all make up. And then they go to a party at the end. And yeah. But, so, The logic behind the weird alien things is they were stealing all the metal and then they're launching it into space and building rockets because people are hurting the environment. So their plan is to all go into orbit around the Earth so people can't hurt the environment. But they're staying in orbit in case they need to get resources from Earth. Launching everything from Earth into space takes more resources than leaving it on Earth. And it emits more things in the ozone than leaving it on Earth. It's like if you're transporting everything, that's taking more energy. And also, they're like, if we take all the metal, then the people on Earth can't use the metal, so they can't hurt the environment. But the people, they already mentioned mines. So it's essentially that if they take all the scrap metal from the cities, launch it into space, then, like all the iron from cities and launch it into space, then the people on Earth can't get it from the ruins. And the only way they'd be able to get it is from mines, and then Tally would just bomb their equipment so they can't mine metal. It's just so obnoxious. The way the environmental stuff in this book is essentially that humans should cease to exist. Population requirement, birth rate requirements is good. And people should not coexist with nature. They should be separate. Unless it's Tally Youngblood. But like, humans and nature should not interact. They should be in tiny cities and never go anywhere. And like, obviously, I don't like everything being developed. But not obviously. Now, I will say I don't like everything being developed. I don't want all the forest cut down. I don't want everything to be destroyed. But this book is so... There's no nuance. There's no intellectual honesty. These characters, obviously, it's not unrealistic for people in a time period to believe everyone before them was idiots and sucked at everything, even though all their technology and advancements came from those people. And the only reason they know those things is because it was learned over time. And this book very much is like everyone in the modern time sucks, and we are the enlightened ones. And we don't hurt the environment, even though they have technology that would not have existed when the other people existed. So there's no way that they would have been able to live the way they do at that time period. There's like this very like better than now mentality. But the whole book seems to support it. The premise of the book is very infantile, where it's like, do not hurt the environment ever. Don't cut down a tree to build your log cabin in the woods where there's like the environment is not being hurt because like someone built a log cabin centuries ago to live in the woods and didn't destroy anything else. But this book acts like if that is your situation, you run off from the city, out in the wilderness, trying to survive, cutting down trees is bad. Not like you're not clear cutting an entire forest, you're cutting down a tree. Every time you cut down a tree is bad. Eating any animal is bad. If you go hunt, like people, like in the first book, the trees that David wants to cut down, based on how it's written, gives me the implication that they weren't even native. And they're like, no, you can't cut down trees. It's like, you generally, like, there is like an invasive plant that's the rangers are destroying, which is considered good. But there's no nuance. There's no, oh, okay, we need to find a balance between humanity living and nature. It's more so like, nope, separate. No, there's no nuance about the birth rates. Like, in China, they enacted birth rates and thousands of girls were killed. Like, gendercide happened. Babies were killed. And now they have a really uneven population, mostly boys. But this book just like acts like controlled birth rates is fine. That there's no other consequences to it. It doesn't, there's no nuance in this series when it comes to that. There's no, and I feel like Princess Mononoke does a better job where it looks at how like humanity matters, but also nature matters. And there's this balance that you have to find in that there has to be a certain level of progress or like helping of humanity to keep them alive, but you don't want to destroy the environment. This book is very much like everyone should go to space and never be on Earth because if they touch anything, they'll destroy it. And I'm like, I care about Earth. I don't want it destroyed, but I also care about Earth because we live on Earth. this is our planet. And my logic isn't we should just leave Earth and go live on freaking Mars. Mars sucks. Part of the reason Earth matters is because it's habitable. And if we're not going to habit, if no human's going to be on Earth, then why should we care? Like, I mean, obviously I care about Earth, but like, if we all left Earth to like a different planet, I'm not gonna like, and all humanity leaves Earth for space. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I wonder how Earth's doing. I'm like, I'm in freaking space. How do I not die? Like, I don't care that much about Mars's environment. I'm not like, oh, I wonder how it is on Jupiter. I hope all there's no life on those planets, so it's a little different. But my point is, this book is very much, it wants solutions to the environment that are just not realistic. Yeah. And then anyway, the last book I read this month, which this one I actually physically read, is Uglies, Shay's story. And so this is a manga. And it's from Shay's perspective. And so one of my things about this manga is I didn't really care for it. So we get to see Shay's point of view of what happened with her and David, and it's very lackluster. It also retcons it. It's in the original, she chickens out, and that's why she doesn't go to the smoke. And she literally says she chickened out. But in this one, she's like, oh, everyone think I chickened out. But really, I left because David sent me a letter being like, I know you're in love with me, but don't come just because you're in love with me. And she gets annoyed, even though she is in love with him. And then also, it says she's in love with him, but again, it's not written in a way where I actually care. Also, David's haircut is stupid. Look at that. That's an awful haircut. And also it like retcons, like in the original book, she's like, oh, when I first did the roller coaster, they didn't tell me about the gap because it's more fun that way. In this one, she accidentally drives across the gap, and David was telling her to stop, slow down, and she almost falls, and then David's mad at her, which does not fit what happened in the first book. In the first book, she said that the people she went out with were like, hey, we're not going to tell you because it's more fun if you find out from just doing it. And this book retcons it. And yeah, and then her romance with David is stupid. They kind of just fight the whole time. I don't know why they even have a romance. And then in the other series, she says boyfriend, but in this one, he never says boyfriend, which, to be fair, he never calls her his girlfriend in the original series. So maybe they weren't, but like, I don't get why they kiss. They kiss once, and then Tally comes and he's mad at her for telling Tally because she could have got killed. But like, I don't care. Like, David's just kissing all these girls. Like, what the heck? Yeah, it was unnecessary. Also, so this is a manga, and I don't read a lot of manga, but generally I find with manga, a lot of times characters have very similar faces. And so this is Shay's face. So this is Shay's before face, and that's her pretty face. Can you tell how much prettier she is? Also, your eyes are supposed to be bigger when you're pretty, and her eyes get smaller. I don't like the art in this. I feel it fails at showing the difference between the pretties and the uglies. So one thing, I was reading the notes at the back, and it was saying that Scott didn't want them to be ugly because they're not actually ugly. The uglies aren't ugly. They're just normal people. And like, Tally is actually supposed to be pretty. David is apparently supposed to be hot in every girl's dream, according to his notes in this, which I'm like, it's not my dream, dude. Just so you know. But, I don't care for it. Also, David's hair is stupid. Like, dude, my dream guy does not have a bowl, like a half bowl cut. Thank you very much. But I digress. The point is one thing that bothers me in art, especially graphic novels, is same face syndrome. I'm not a fan of when everyone has the same face. And for this story, it's especially important that they don't all have the same face. And I feel like their faces aren't distinct enough for me to actually be like, oh yes, that is the pretties and those are the uglies. I feel, so one thing about the original book series is that the pretties all do have very similar faces. It's hard to tell them apart. So for this book, the Uglies should have had all very distinct faces. And I personally do not believe they do. Their faces aren't particularly memorable. They don't stand out. They look very similar to me. Like, this is Zayn before he's pretty. Apparently he was a blonde first. And then this is him after he's pretty. Oh, after he's pretty. See? He dyes his hair. So that's his face. And that's his face. Can you? Wow, it's so different. I don't think the art style does the story justice. And I feel like also I don't generally read comics and manga. I find they tend to not have as much detail as novels, or even as much as movies sometimes. And I've read good ones, and I want to read more. But this one didn't do it for me. I didn't care for it. So I didn't say the ratings of all the books, but the new Lightlark book I gave 3 stars. At least I think it was a fun kind of soap opera ebook. I'm not going to just say stars, but it was fun. These books are all masterpieces. Okay, the Hunger Games trilogy is all masterpieces. Done. That's my review for it. The Uglies series, it's okay. I feel like I should say it's better than Nightbane. Nightbane's a hot mess story. But the Uglies trilogy, honestly, having reread it, I feel like it's overrated. So I never liked Extras, and Extras was actually the only book that I thought more positively of after rereading it. I thought it aged better. But Uglies, it's okay. Like, this was the only one that I was like, this was the worst one, the graphic novel. Extras was the second worst, then the first book, and then the third book was actually fine except the ending. The ending was stupid. But this, I will say, the Ugly series, Tally was very much a product of her environment. It was well done, making her feel like someone from her world. And there were always consequences to her action, and the world was well thought out. I just felt that beauty standards were not explored well, and the author felt like he was more interested in writing a book about the environment than one about beauty standards, and the ending was also stupid. And I will say, I would be fine with him writing a book about the environment. I would read that if that was the conflict, a sci-fi book about save the environment, but this wasn't that book. And yeah. Anyway, though, those are all the books I read this month. How many was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I read 9 books in January 2024. So, off to a great start. I do hope next month to read some more physical books, because I only read 1 physical book, and then I read some chapters in physical format for 2 of the books, because I can read faster if I'm physically reading, but I did listen to a lot of these books and then read when I would get home to be like, okay, let me get through faster so I can finish it before the movie marathon. But anyway, those are all my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry if I rambled. It's kind of a mess, but there's no script for this because I just wanted to get it out and share my thoughts. Anyway, what did you think of any of these books? I do hope to do more in-depth reviews for all of them, though I don't know how much more there is to add because I kind of did my Ugly series rant. But yeah, I will say I have not completed the second graphic novel, which I do plan on reading, which it would be nice to have that in the video with all the Uglies books, but oh well, it's too late now. I didn't finish it before the end of the month. Anyway, though, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the books I read. How many books did you read this month? This is way more than I normally do, and I also listen to them, so that's not the same as like stopping what I'm doing to read, because I can do it while I'm doing everything else. And if you don't listen to books or like listening to books, it's hard to compare. Also, honestly, if you don't have as much time to listen to books, that's hard. But anyway, what'd you read this month? What was your favorite book? Honestly, my favorite book I read this month was Mockingjay, and my least favorite book I read this month was Uglies Shay story. So anyway, though, yeah, what did you think? Let me know what you thought of my thoughts of the books, even if you haven't read them. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think having the environmental stuff, even if there's no characters who disagree with the environment being important, actually is good? Or, yeah. Anyway, though, Let me know all your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.